नित्यमच्युतपदाम्बुजयुग्मरुक्मा व्यामोहतस्तदितराणि तृणाय मेने अस्मद्गुरोर्भगवतोऽस्य दयैकसिन्धो रामानुजस्य चरणौ शरणं प्रपद्ये कौडिन्यवंशवरवारिधिपूर्णचन्द्रं श्रीमत्पराङ्कुशपदाम्बुजभृङ्गराजं रङ्गार्यदेशिकपदाप्तसुदेशिकत्वं श्रीरामकृष्णगुरुवर्यमहं प्रपद्ये लोकाचार्याय गुरवे कृष्णपादस्य सूनवे संसारभोगिसन्द्रष्ट जीवजीवातवे नमः। जय श्रीमन्नारायण. Welcome to this session of Tattvatrayam, and you have Lokacharya Swamiji. In the past, he came and he put things together for us to understand what we need to understand it for moksha. In any session, in anything that we do, the first part of the session is always sattvic. You are more interested, there is more zeal. You have more attention and retention capacity. So the most important aspect of anything must be spoken at the beginning. And the most lazy and boring thing must be spoken towards the end. So what is the most important? What is the absolute truth? We have spoken about this before. Absolute truth is not bound by space or time. It must remain absolute in all frames. And there can only be one truth. You can have different interpretations of the same truth, but you cannot have contrary truths of the same thing, because either one is true or both of them are lies. To attain this truth, the path to this truth must also be eternal. It cannot be bound by space or time. If you have truth, the path to that truth must also be as infinite as the truth itself. There cannot be one way to reach the truth only, because the truth is absolute, and if it is infinite, the path to reach that must also be infinite. This path to reach this infinite truth is called Sanatana Dharma. When did Sanatana Dharma begin? There cannot be a beginning, because Sanatana is eternal. Because the truth always existed, the path to the truth must also have always existed. And the present day so-called Hindu religion is called Sanatana Dharma. And we will refer to it as Sanatana Dharma henceforth. Okay? The most important aspect of our existence is attaining this absolute truth, to understand and realize this absolute truth. Two basic fundamental upaya or pathways to attaining this absolute truth. Is it limited to only two of these? No. But in the end, you will approach this attainment to either one of these, is what the Srimad Bhagavat Mahapurana has to say. So what are these? Bhakti and Sharanagati. Bhakti Yoga and Sharanagati Yoga. I will give you a brief understanding of what Bhakti is. Bhakti is made up of mainly three steps. Parabhakti, Parajnanam, Paramabhakti. After attaining Paramabhakti, you will attain moksha when you leave the body. Before Parabhakti, you have to go through Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. In Yama you have Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. Niyama you have Saucha, Santosha, Tapasa, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. Even in Niyama itself you have Ishvara Pranidhana. You must start thinking about the Lord, contemplating about the existence of Parabrahma, Paramatma, Purushottama, Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. You must be contemplating upon him. Even just in Niyama itself. Asteya, not stealing. Brahmacharya, to remain an ascetic. To be in the highest level of duty. The celibacy is not a direct attribute of brahmacharya always. A grihasti can also remain a brahmacharya. There are techniques and systems in place. However, then you have asana, then pranayama, the breathing technique, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, and so on. So you have hatha yoga, and then you have raja yoga. In samadhi, you will reach the first step. You have complete contemplation of Bhagavana only at that point in time. You have nothing else. Para bhakti. Then you start understanding what this ultimate existence is. Paragyanam. Then every moment in time, you can't contemplate about anything else. All you see is Bhagavan. All you contemplate, all you can see, all you can think about is Bhagavana and Bhagavana only. What do you see? Why do you see? Because you know, we used to have this, we have monkeys at our place. I'm from the mountains. We have monkeys, and monkeys wreak great deal of havoc in our fields. They will come, and if they like the food, they will eat it. If they don't like the food, they will uproot it, bite it, and throw it. And generally, when we go and chase the monkeys away, you will see some mother monkeys, big, hade we call them, big monkeys, and you will have the mother monkey will have a small baby monkey holding on to the monkey, and the monkey will jump from one tree to the other, then the other, and then run away. You can't throw stones because they hide and they dodge you, and they look at you and they'll make noises, they'll do, and then they will dodge you, and then they'll provoke you with the monkey, the baby monkey on their stomach. If the baby monkey leaves the mother monkey, it will fall from that height, 30, 40, 50 feet tall trees, it will fall. In our house, to keep rat infestation away, if you have rats in the house and around the house, snakes will come around the house. We don't want snakes, so we keep a cat. If you have a cat, the cat will take care of the rats. Snakes will not come around the house because there are no rats to consume. So our cat had a litter, and small baby kittens, and when the cat was taking the kittens from the roof where she gave birth to downstairs, where we put a box for her, you hold the cat from the back of the neck, and the kitten will just be lame. It has nothing to do. All you do is just exist. You can't do anything else. And the mother will pick and then drop, pick and then drop. If the mother drops, she'll fall. But it's all the mother. The kitten herself or himself cannot do anything. The monkey, this frame of logic is called Kapi Kishore Nyaya. That is bhakti. You are actively involved in attaining Paramatma. We are like that. If you are performing bhakti yoga, you are like that monkey, the baby monkey holding on to the mother, like we are holding on to Bhagavana. You must think of Bhagavana at all times, just like the baby monkey holds the mother at all times. The moment she leaves, she falls. So at the point of death, when the Jivatma is leaving the body, you must contemplate upon the thought and beauty of Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. You must think about Bhagavan at that point in time. This form of Nyaya is called Tat Kratu Nyaya. This form of logic, Tat Kratu Nyaya. At that moment in time, the moment when the Jivatma leaves the body, what must you contemplate about? Kasturi tilakam lalata patale vakshasthale kaustubham nasagre navamauktikam karatale venum kare kankanam sarvange harichandanam sulalitam kanthe chamuktavalim gopastri pariveshtito vijayate gopala chudamani. You're contemplating about Bhagavana, Kasturi Tilakam, a tilakam like the one I'm wearing right now, Lalata Patale upon the forehead, Vakshasthale Kaustubham, the divine jewel Kaustubhamani upon his chest, Nasagre Navamauktikam Karatale, on the nose he's wearing pearls, Karatale, the bangles, the golden bangles upon his hands, he's holding the flute, describing Bhagavan Shri Krishna. Sarvange Harichandanam, he's smeared sandalwood paste all over his body, and there's just beautiful smell coming out of him. Sulalitam kanthecha muktavalim. Your pearls and diamonds worn around the neck he's wearing. Gopastri pariveshtito. Pariveshtite. All gopi stris are all around him and he's like a jewel right in the middle. That contemplation at the point of when the Jivatma is leaving the body, thinking about Bhagavana, you will attain Bhagavana. That is Tat Kratu Nyaya through Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is limited by Tat Kratu Nyaya because if you think of something else, you will attain that. When you go to the shop, you want to buy milk. You wake up in the morning, you open the fridge, you don't have milk. Then you say, I need to get some milk. I'm going for shopping anyway in the evening. When I'm coming back, I'll get milk from there. You shop, a lavish shopper, you bring a lot of food. And then you come back home, you put all the things back into the fridge and, you put the vegetables in a different place. And then you realize, I forgot to get the milk. Then you go back to the shop and get the milk. When should you remember to get the milk? You must remember that at the point you're buying the milk, you must remember to buy the milk. You go to the shop and then you forget what you need to buy. Can you buy the milk? You cannot buy the milk because you don't remember what to buy. At that point of the Jivatma is leaving the body, the Jivatma must be thinking of Paramatma for it to attain Paramatma. In a room, if you have a small baby, 3-month-old baby sleeping on the bed, you will not expect the baby to come to you. You will go to the baby. The baby cannot do anything by itself. Then you must carry the baby. You must take care of the baby. Just like that kitten is taken care by her mother. Marjala Kishore Nyaya. We are like, Sharanagati is like that kitten. That is the difference between Bhakti and Sharanagati. Sharanagati is like the kitten. We are like that kitten. We are helpless people and we have realized it. And we surrender upon the feet of the Lord. And we say that, oh Bhagavana, I am not in a position to understand anything in this world. I can't do Ashtanga Yoga. I can't do Bhakti. I don't know what Bhakti is. I don't know who you are. I don't know what anything is. I know you exist and I'm surrendering. I'm like one 2-month-old baby. I can't do anything. You take care of me. So the point of death, Tat Kratu Nyaya doesn't work because now you have already given responsibility for moksha to somebody else. Before you were saying, I will do it for you and I will attain moksha through bhakti. Sharanagati you were saying, I can't do, you do it for me. And then you attain moksha through that.
How is this one called again?
Sharanagati. Prapatti Yoga. Prapati. So what do you say? Tvai rakshati rakshakaihi kimanyaihi. Tvaicha arakshati rakshakaihi kimanyaihi. Sriman Narayana, if Bhagavana is on my side, what do I have to fear? Where do I have to hide? If Bhagavana is against me, where can I hide? Tvai rakshati rakshakaihi kimanyaihi. Tvaicha arakshati rakshakaihi kimanyaihi. Complete surrender. Sharanagati Yoga is the crux of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya and Sri Vishishtadvaita Darshana. And with that, the most rudimentary concepts of Sri Vishishtadvaita Vedanta has been propagated by Tattvatrayam. And therefore, we must understand the self, we must understand Bhagavana, and we must understand this existence. Because if you want to perform Sharanagati, if you want to completely surrender upon the lotus feet of the Lord, you must know who He is. Or you must know, if there is anyone, you must know who to surrender to. It is very important. And for that, Tattvatrayam is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful text for us to understand this. It has 3 parts: Chit Prakaranam, Achit Prakaranam, and Ishwar Prakaranam. And we will start with Chit Prakaranam today. Mumuksho chetanasya moksha siddhaye tattvatraya jnanam apekshitam tattvatrayam chidachid ishwarascha. Mumukshu, though referring to those who want to attain moksha, those jivatma who want to attain moksha. Who? Chetanasya. Any jivatma, a cat, a kitten, will they also attain moksha through this? Tattvatrayam is referring to human beings when he says Chetanasya. Chetana, that wisdom, is there only in human beings. enough to recognize the self and to recognize that the self has been created by somebody else, something else. Animals have jnanam, they have knowledge. Because without knowledge, how will they know that they are hungry? Because they feel hungry. How will they know that they are thirsty? They drink. They have knowledge that when they are thirsty, they must drink water. When they are hungry, they must consume food. So they have knowledge. They have jnanam of varying degrees. But they do not have viveka, chetana. The viveka shakti is very less. The power is very less. To be able to bring to cognizance, to be able to recognize things, and to be able to distinguish time. That yesterday was something, today is something else. They live in the moment and live instinctively. They are bound by their instinct. We have surpassed our instincts and live by viveka shakti, logic and inference. The ability of other living organisms to live by logic and inference is limited. Mumuksho chetanasya moksha siddhaye. The word moksha, what does it mean here? Moksha can refer to just removal of pain. The word moksha can just refer to the removal of pain. It can just refer to the understanding of Atma as we had understood in Kaivalya Moksha. Remember, in Advaita Siddhanta, Kaivalya, Kevala Mukti, there just understanding the self can also be understood as moksha. But what is Lokacharya Swamiji is trying to say here? When he says mumukshu, he's talking about Pashur Manushya Pakshiva Yecha Vaishnava Samtatha Tenaiva te Puyasyanti Tat Vishnoho Paramam Padam. That Vishnu, attainment of that Vishnu is moksha here. Here Vishnu is referring to Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. To attain for a mumukshu, those who want moksha, bubukshu, who don't want moksha. You and I are mumukshu because you are sitting in this session and I am speaking. If you were not mumukshu, you wouldn't sit here. Bubukshu would not care about this. What should a mumukshu know? The three basic tattva, the three basic elements. We had just used the word element. These are non-translatables. Chitta, Achitta and Ishvara. These three. Today we are talking about Chitta or Atma. Achitta is Prakriti and Ishvara is Bhagavan. This rudimentary understanding of these three, Chitta, Achitta and Ishvara, is required for moksha. Chidit Atmochate Atmaswarupam Gatva Gatvottarottaram Mityutta Prakarena Dehendriya Manaha Prana Buddhibhyo Vilakshanam. So what is the Atma? Now we are going. Finally, from all these sessions, we have only discussed it is Atma. Now we are discussing what is it? How is it? What is the nature of Atma? Ityukta Prakarena Dehendriya Manaha Prana Buddhibhyo Vilakshanam. It is different. Vilakshanam. It is different from the body. It is different from the sense organs. It is different from the prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana, the upapranas. It is different from that. It is different from the annamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha. It is different from all of this. Vilakshanam. So how is it? Ajadam. Ananda Rupam. It experiences sukha and dukha. It is the experiencer of emotions. Nityam. Pragbhava. Pratiyogitve sati. Pradvamsa abhava. Pratiyogitvam nityatvam. There is no pragabhava, no pradvamsa abhava. It is nitya. There is no beginning and it was never created. It will never be destroyed. It always existed, it will always exist. That is what nityatvam means. Anu. Balasya satabhagasya satadha kalpitasyata. If you have one, take a strand of hair, take the tip of the hair, cut the shatadha, cut that into 100 pieces. Take one piece of that, cut that also into 100 pieces, and whatever remains, it is smaller than even that. It is anu. Avyaktam. It cannot be perceived by our sense organs. Avyaktam. You cannot see it, you cannot hear it, you cannot smell it, you cannot taste it, you cannot feel it. Achintyam. You cannot imagine it to be something. There is no point of imagination where you say it must be like this. I can imagine it to be like this. You cannot imagine it to be. Achintyam. It cannot be imagined. Niravayavam. So if you take this clip, it has these two hands, and then you have to press it this way. There are at least three main parts to this. Then you have the smiley face also. And it has parts. There is an akara. Atma has no akara. There are no parts. So is it nirakara? No. Is it formless? No, it is not formless. There is a form, but you cannot give examples and say it is like this. I can say this clip is like another black clip that I had. You cannot say that about the Atma. It is unique in its own way. You cannot compare it and say it is like this. Niravayavam. There is no avayava. There is no parts, or you cannot say that it looks like this. The Atma is not nirakara. There is an akara. There is a form, but we cannot understand the form, and you cannot compare it to something that already exists. Nirvikaram. So again, let's take this for instance. This is a clip. This is a new clip. I bought it maybe a month ago. 10 years later, maybe the ink will come off, or the paint will come off. The hands will start rusting. It's not. I think it's just a stainless steel coating. It will start rusting, generally the iron. And then 20 years later, it will start disintegrating. Maybe 50, 100 years later, it won't exist. There is a vikara. It diminishes. It becomes worse and worse until it dies. It perishes. Atma does not perish. It does not become old. However, it is, and it will always remain like that. Dharya. Now, to understand Dharya, I have tried very hard to translate this in English. If I ask you to go, assuming you have butter in the kitchen, ghee, you eat ghee, butter, Indian processed ghee, butter in the kitchen. So I ask you, and what do I say? Can you get me the butter which is in the box? So you go to the kitchen, you get me the butter which is in the box. What does this sentence imply? When you say the butter in the box, it implies that there is butter maybe in a cup, there is a butter maybe in a bowl, maybe butter on the plate, there's butter on the stove. But I want you to get me the butter which is in the box. So the container is the box and the contained is the butter. And if I ask you to get me a box of butter, you can have a box of salt, box of sugar, a box of milk. But then I'm asking you to get me a box of butter. The container, the subject and the object, do you see the difference? Mm-hmm. Here, the container is the butter, because that is the subject, that's what I want. And the content is the box. Dharya, dharana. Dharya, dharaka sambandham it is called. Dharya, dharaka. The container and the contained. So, Jivatma is dharya, meaning it contains something within it. What does it contain? It contains Paramatma within it. Bhagavana is within Jivatma. The Atma within it contains Bhagavana, therefore it is called Dharya. So here Dharya is also a quality of Bhagavana. And finally Shesham. Sesham and Seshi. Shesha and Seshi. If I have an assistant, I want something to happen and the assistant does it for me. I am the Seshi, the assistant is the Sesha. Bhagavana is the Seshi, Jivatma is the Sesha. I am of service to the Lord, Bhagavana accepts my service. I am the servant and I serve him. He is that which accepts the service. Seshi. In description of Bhagavana, he lies upon a 1,000-headed snake His name is Ananta, but he is called Sheshanaga because he's Shesha. He's that entity which provides service to Bhagavana. So he's Sheshanaga. Naga is snake. Sheshanaga. And Bhagavana's name is Seshi. He is one who accepts everyone's service. Now these are the qualities of Atma. Now we'll understand each of them one after the other with a little more depth and detail. Atma Swarupam Katham Dehadi Vilakshanam iti chet Dehadi nam mama Dehadi Kamiti Atmanaha. So Katham, how is it? He's asking a question now. This text is a question and answer. It will tell you something and it will say, then it will ask itself the question, how can it be? It will challenge itself. That's called Tarka Shastra. So here it's asking, how is it that the body is different from the Atma? The question. And then it says, what do we say? My hands, my nails, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, my body. Where am I in it? It is mine, then however I must be different from it. If it is mine, then I must be different from it. So who is this? Then therefore I am saying it must be different, he said. It must be different because of that. Because I don't refer to myself, the hand as me, I refer to it as mine. It is a commodity. Anekatvat atmanaha ekatvat. Whatever belongs to the Atma at this moment in time is many. The hands, feet, legs. Atmana ekatva. There is only one Atma. You live through space-time, through time from the age you are 5 until the age you are 90. At every moment in time you say, I am. I am Dev. I am Dev. I am Daniel. I am Daniel. I am Maruta. All the way, I remain steady. Everything changes. Anekatvat atmanaha ekatvat. Atma is only one. Everything keeps changing, but Atma remains one. And therefore we can say that it must be different from at least what is changing. So, let's understand what jnana is here. Knowledge allows others to understand. The knowledge itself doesn't know itself. It doesn't know itself. Jnana does not establish itself. It allows for the establishment of others. This pin, this paperclip, does not know itself. It allows for me to recognize it. If I leave it on the table, it will not recognize itself. If I see it, the knowledge allows me to recognize it. Atma does not allow it to recognize anything else. It only recognizes itself. That is called Dharma Bhuta Jnanam. The Atma does not recognize anything else. It recognizes only itself. It establishes itself. Knowledge allows the establishment of other entities. Atma establishes itself and itself only. When the Atma comes in union with the body, through the body, using the sense organs, it acquires knowledge and therefore recognizes things around it. Atma by itself cannot recognize anything. In communion with the body, it forms a communion with the sense organs. Indriya Janya Jnanam. Indriya means the sense organs. Janya means born. That knowledge born out of the Indriyas, it accepts that knowledge and recognizes. So for Atma to recognize and understand Bhagavana, it requires a physical body. Therefore the Atma is born into this body, through this body.
Could you repeat this one once again? I think I got it, but it's a bit blurry.
Knowledge establishes other entities. It does not establish itself. Knowledge doesn't come out and say, I am the knowledge. It establishes other entities. Jnana establishes other entities. Atma establishes only itself. That's why Atma says, I am. I woke up. I slept well and I woke up. I slept well. The knowledge of sleep does not recognize itself. The Atma recognizes that knowledge.
Okay. So something to be recognized, it needs Atma to see it.
Yes.
watch it.
So there is a difference between knowledge, jnana, and atma. And that is what apparently is the confusion in the Western system of understanding. They say that atma can only be in human beings because it has that knowledge. But that is jnana rupa. And animals do not have atma, therefore you can kill it and eat it. It makes perfect sense if you look at that frame of logic. But atma is not jnana. Jnana allows atma to recognize this world. Without atma, how will the dog know that it is hungry? So the dog must have atma as well. Every entity, if a living entity, must have an atma, because without it, it cannot communicate. It cannot recognize. It cannot understand in its own way. Trees included.
Can I use an example to
Yeah.
ensure understanding for myself? So, if we think of something that is like a paperclip or like a stone or something inert that has no atma, it has no center, it has no place of awareness. You know, you could take a big stone, smash it, a small stone, smash it, little stone, smash it, you know, and there's no, you're never getting to the center of the
Yes.
rock. It is just rock. The direction that you're
Absolutely.
going.
You see, if you cannot recognize anything if you don't have self-existence.
Mhm.
You must know I exist. Therefore, the knowledge is coming directed towards you and you recognize it. The only thing I would like to add there is the stone also has Atma. Atma is there everywhere, Jivatma. But it does not have a body to function. Because the Atma is there within this body, it has the body through which it can function, because the Indriyas are there. The stone also may have so many Atmas all around us, but it has no point of function. It cannot function through that stone. The stone has nothing. It doesn't feel. It does not have the Twak Indriya. It does not have the sense of feeling. And therefore it cannot recognize.
So a stone is chitta or achitta?
Achit.
Achit. But then chitta is where atma.
No,
Yes.
Atma is Chitta.
Atma is chitta,
Yes, the body is Achitta.
and the body is achitta. So the stone has both chitta and achitta.
No,
in it?
stone itself doesn't have. The space is shared by everyone.
Mhm.
The body has Chitta within the Achitta. And because this Achitta can function as the Atma wants, this body appears to be Chitta.
Mhm.
The stone does not have that functionality.
Mhm.
Because the car has the ability to be driven, you can drive it. If you have a big stone, Flintstone cannot drive a random rock.
Mhm.
He needs the wheels.
Mhm.
So because the car has the ability to be driven, you can sit inside it and drive it. If you just sit inside a cave, you cannot drive the cave because it cannot be driven. Just like that, the stone may have an Atma within it, but it cannot function. The Atma is Chitta, the stone is Achitta. This body is Achitta, and the Atma is Chitta. Make sense now?
You know, I understand now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Atma, because of what you've just said, it's indivisible. It doesn't change. So it's separate. It doesn't have a part. You can't say like this is like this is like that. The Atma's like this. The Atma's not like that. It's sort of just through its absence in the material sense. Is that the right way of putting it?
Yes.
You know, it's non-presence in observable material existence.
Yes.
You can't use analogy.
Make sense?
It does. Metaphor is my favorite way of understanding things, so I'm already at a disadvantage. I'll have to start again, like let's take from start. Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, I know sometimes we use stories and so on to explain a lot of things. But the stories become a little limiting when you're talking about abstract notions.
It's helpful for me to think of it as like the Atma is like a center. Not to say that it is that, but it's like it's like a point.
Yes.
No, a hundredth of a hair. This sort of is a point, you know, and then everything material is around that point.
Correct.
Right.
However, it is not just a point.
Okay.
Point does not exist.
Right.
Point is only a framework.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you have sampradayas who will say that it is nirguna, that the point, it does not have any gunas, as if this is just maya, there is a point and there's only one. Yes. So even though it is like that point, it is not non-existent. It completely exists, but it does not exist in the way we can imagine it. It cannot be imagined. So even if you are trying to draw a parallel with what you know, but you cannot, is what it is saying. Avyakta.
Nirvarayam, is it?
Niravayavam.
Nirvarayam. Yeah.
Niravayavam means it does not have a form because it does not exist in the way we understand it. Avyaktam is what it is.
Avyaktam.
It cannot be perceived by our senses. And achintyam, you cannot imagine it to be something. And then you go ahead with Niravayavam, Nirvikaram, Jnana Swarupam. So ajadam means that which establishes its own existence. I exist, I am. That's what ajadam means. That is the quality of Jivatma. Saesha Jiva Vivara Prasuti Pranena Ghoshena Guham Pravishta Manomayam Sukshmamupetya Rupam Matra Swarup Varna iti Sthavishtaha. So how is it that the Atma only establishes itself? If the Atma did not have Dharma Bhuta Jnanam, that I am, how would you know if something is alive or dead? You know something is dead because there was a point where it could establish itself as an existing entity. It could communicate. It was small, but it could. What is the quality of a Jivatma when it is in communion with the body? It can make sound of its own will. A rock can make sound, but not of its own will. If it falls due to gravity, if I push it, if I break it, if I shake, move it. If there is no association with a Jivatma, Achitta cannot make any sound. It cannot make language. It cannot communicate. So therefore you ask, if we can't make sound, if we make sound, so we can understand, rocks don't make sound. But what about small microorganisms? So here, the question we are trying to explain and understand is, it is not about the sound that it makes, but the ability of it to communicate. Non-Jivatma, if an entity does not have Jivatma within it, it cannot communicate. Unicellular organisms, the simplest of unicellular organisms, even those prokaryotes which don't even have their the nucleus differentiated, even they communicate with other prokaryotes around. The smallest of organisms can communicate with things around. Ajadatva means to know itself by itself. If I can establish myself without you having to establish my existence, I do not need an external entity to establish my existence. I exist in this physical body and mind complex. My cup, it exists, but if I am not in this room, there is no Chetana to establish its existence. Then Ananda Rupam Sukha Swarupatvam. The ability to experience is Ananda Rupam. If I am able to experience good, I can experience evil, I can experience pain, I can experience anger, I can experience happiness. The body is the medium through which the Atma experiences. Even plants, trees. You've been planting trees, Daniel. So trees. So the question is, can trees feel pain? Can trees feel happiness? And the answer is yes. They feel. But they feel less. So we'll try and measure how much each one feels, each different. So let's take a gauge of 16 degrees. Trees, plants, fungi and so on, they experience 1 out of 16. That is the level of experience. That is called Jnana Swarupa Chetana Shakti. To be able to cognize and bring the sense of distinguishing one thing from another, truth from lie, that wisdom, it's called Chetana. So if there are 16 amsha, trees have 1, mosquitoes and flies have 2, dogs and cats have 3 out of 16. Some dogs will have 4, slightly more intelligent, apparently so. Then you have elephants and donkeys, horses and cows, buffaloes, yak, 5, some of them have 6. Then you have humans, 7. Yogis and kings, not the current day kings, the olden great kings of Bharat Desha, 8. Then you have beings above the human beings in the Bhuvar Loka. We have mentioned, this is the Bhuloka, this earth. Then you have other platforms, you have other dimensions, Bhuvar, Swar, Maharjana, Tapa, Satya. So in Bhuvar Loka, you have entities called Yakshas. And then Devatas and so on. They have 9 and 10 and some have 11. Over 11, it is said they are Bhagavana. They are akin to Bhagavana. Over 11. But you have very few of them. Akin to, not completely, but you can call them Bhagavan. Over 11, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Go ahead.
Is that the manifestation of Bhagavana through bundles of characteristics like Vishnu or Narasimha or these, Ganesh or whatever? Are these like ways that Bhagavana demonstrates levels of experience?
That's an outstanding question.
Thank you.
But the answer to which will come in Ishvara Prakaranam.
Sure. Okay.
I could give it right now, but it's anyway going to come in Ishvara Prakaranam.
That's fine.
My Acharya always tells me, I keep asking questions without him finishing. And not that you are doing so, you waited. I am not like that. I ask in the middle. He's like, it'll come. It'll come.
Cool.
That's what he says. No, it'll come. The concept of how this creation happens will come in Achit Prakaranam as well. So that's why I haven't gone into it right now. Sometimes, some parts you may feel as if this fellow hasn't explained to me what is happening. And that is a devised mechanism of delivery, where some parts will be delivered at appropriate times.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of an intelligent man, not that I am, but the beauty of an intelligent man is not that he knows what to do, but he knows when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bhagavana, when he comes for help, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyukthanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. He comes whenever and wherever there is a breach of dharma, he comes to re-establish in whatever form. But he knows exactly when to come. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashayascha duskritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. He comes, yugas after yuga, he'll keep coming. But he comes at the right time. So, sometimes we ask, I have been in so much pain. Why doesn't he help me now? He knows when it is appropriate.
Mm.
That appropriate time is very important for us. The time is so important because we are restricted by time. Our body is restricted by time. It ages. And we will understand that in Ishvara Prakaranam as well. What is, of course, Achit Prakaranam will get into time. Okay. There are lots of things. They're coming. Many questions were answered after I finished studying this text as well. Many. Of course, there are always questions, and that is very natural, and that is important as well. For us, in Sanatana Dharma, we must keep questioning. Every text we have, Bhagavad Gita, we have Puranas. Each of the Puranas are question and answers. The person delivering he'll say something, and the person who is listening will say, no, it can't be true. And then the person delivering will say, no, it must be true because of this. And then he will rebut that. And then you have a huge conversation, you have a dialogue. And then we establish whatever we need to establish by the end of it. There is always conversation. That as well. From Bhagavana, he manifests as something, which manifests as something else, and it keeps descending down. But who provides moksha? Bhagavana alone. after he manifests for a certain period of time, all the qualities of Bhagavan are not there in the manifestations. Narasimha is a Bhagavan. He has complete manifestation. He's a complete manifestation of Bhagavan. Narasimha, Rama, Krishna, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma. These are all complete manifestation. Parashurama, he's an Amshavatara. He is a partial manifestation. Brahma, Indra, these are partial manifestations, even smaller manifestations. Small manifestations. And they cannot provide moksha. They are not complete manifestation of Bhagavan. They are like Jivatma, you and I. Of course, much more able. But they are like that. So we must surrender to the lotus-like feet of Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. And I keep saying lotus-like. Why do I say lotus? I don't know if I've mentioned this before. But if you see a lotus grows in a muddy pond with all the dirt and everything. But then when it flowers, there is not a speck of dirt on the flower. So Bhagavana is like that. Taking care of the world of pain and misery, he remains apart from it like a lotus in that dirty pond. So when a lotus like with tender feet, remains away from all the pain and angst and anguish and so on. He has that capacity to be within yet without, like on a boat. You are in the ocean but apart from it. Nityatvam, Sarvakala, Vartitvam. Now we are talking about Nityatvam. What I was thinking is, we will continue with Nityatvam from next session. Nityatvam is a very, very interesting topic. If you have more questions, now is the time to ask. Because I was trying to break it down into certain fragments. If there is too much packed into one, it will be very difficult for people to understand everything. Maybe you may have to go back and take a few notes. What I have been trying to do is trying to see if I can get some translatable so I can give that to you. Otherwise, the explanation is, I hope, clear.
Very.
So maybe I'll just go back to the last point that we discussed, that Atma's ability to experience.
Yes.
It's one of the qualities of Atman.
Yes.
And then you said that there is the grading of experiencing. So at the very first point is trees. But then Atman is also in other objects, right? Like Daniel was talking about stone.
Yes.
So stone would be something that's below trees because it doesn't have these abilities to experience,
yes.
right?
Yes.
But it still has the Atman.
Yeah. See, Atma is everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere, in this air also. Everywhere there is Atma. In this air, you have some bacterial maybe floating around, maybe some viruses. I don't think there are any virus around in my
You were okay.
but you could understand virus as a transition between a living and a non-living. So there must be, when an Atma enters a virus, it becomes living. When it comes out of a virus, it remains non-living. Something to think about. Atma is everywhere, but it does not have a physical body. When you talk about Amsha, the 16 Amsha, what you are really looking at in the 16 Amsha is the Atma association with a physical body. You have to understand that the association of the body, only through the association of a physical body can an Atma attain knowledge, because Atma by itself has only Dharma Bhuta Jnana. It only knows itself. Through the association with a physical body, a Deha, Dehindriya Mana Prana, with that association with Deha, Indriya, Manas, Prana, all these, with association with that, it can recognize, it can receive information from outside. If it is not in association with these, it only recognizes itself. Because it is not in association with Deha, Indriya, Mana or Prana in the stone, it is zero. Shunyam. It does not have ability to recognize anything else but itself at that moment.
But it still has a sense of I am.
Yes. If Atma will always have a sense of self. That is the nature of Atma.
Even if it's in the body of a stone, like an object
it is not really confined to the stone, right? It is not confined to the stone. There is a great story actually of Gautama Rishi, and his wife, he woke up early in the morning, Gautama Rishi, and he went for his shower. So in the early days, Rishi lived in the forest with his wife, and Gautama Rishi went, and Gautama Rishi's wife was so beautiful that Indra, the king of the Swarga Loka, the king of Swarga Loka was also attracted to Gautama Rishi's wife. So he came in the form of Gautama Rishi and indulged in unlawful activities with Gautama Rishi's wife, knowing well that this cannot be her wife because this man is way too perfect. He is a devata. She indulged, she continued. When Gautama Rishi came back, he got angry and he cursed her that you will remain as a rock for eternity. And then Bhagavan did, later on, Rama comes back and breaks that rock and releases and requests Gautama Rishi to accept her as a wife again. She has already paid for sin. The story is that she was trapped in a rock. So was her body trapped in a rock? Maybe not, because the body decays. But the Atma was trapped in a rock. And then she could enter a new Jivatma, of course. Maybe not, but just to understand, Atma can be anywhere. If it has a body to manifest, it will manifest as a physical being. If it does not have a body to manifest, it will wait until it can manifest. It may not be able to manifest directly, so first it will manifest as, bacteria and fungi and so on, smaller organisms, and it will work its way up. That is the evolution of the Atma. It will evolve, and then it will slowly evolve, and then finally it will reach. Of course, it gathers karma along the way, and we'll understand karma also sometime. And with karma only it can be born as a physical body. You see, only if it has enough karma. Only if you have the money, you can buy the milk in the shop. You cannot go, pick up and run out. They'll tackle you. I've seen these people tackle. The people, so you won't get away with it. And just like that, the Atma cannot get a body without having enough currency. So you require that. You require karma. Karma is your currency, good or bad. Depending on the karma, you will get. So if you have 1 pound, you will just get ordinary Tesco milk. If you have 3 pounds, you will get organic ordinary Tesco milk. It's the same thing, but so just like that. And then if you have a lot of money, maybe 10-15 pounds, then they will say something A2, A3, A4 milk and so on. And then they will say they have put some elixir of life and so on in the milk, and they'll sell it to you. And you will buy it because we have money, we'll buy. It's all about the karma. Does it make a difference? It doesn't make much of a difference. Because in the end, you want to be free of money in the first place. You want to be in a position where you can get milk without money. When you can just go to the cow and say, can you give me some milk? And then the cow is like, okay, come take. You want to be in that position. That is the moksha. But we'll attain moksha only if we are not bound by the karma. And right now we are bound by karma. So how much ever karma we have, we can use that to purchase the body. This body is called karma janyam, born out of karma only. Okay? And we'll understand that karma also.
Just one on the Atma Jivatma point again. I know we've talked about this before, but just to link it to this conversation about the Atma. So the Atma is in everything and isn't individual in everything. It is one, right? But then the Jivatma is kind of like the individual self as well, and so it's almost like the body, the Jivatma, the Atma are in like this process or relationship,
Yeah.
As a part of like how the Atma connects with the body. Is the Jivatma part of that connection?
Yes.
And then really the Jivatma is trying to lose its identification with the body, the mind and everything, and just be left with the experience of Paramatma.
So in a physical body, how many Jivatma do we have? Each cell has its own Jivatma.
Okay. Right.
But there is one Jivatma in the middle, Vakshasthala, in the Hridaya Rupi Gufa. So Vivara.
Each cell, you mean that each any object that has a shape is a Jivatma.
No. See, actually, you should actually try and forget what I said about Jivatma is everywhere. It is confusing you.
Okay.
Okay? Just forget that part now. Because if you remember that Jivatma is everywhere, you want to know why it is there.
Yeah.
That is the problem. The simple answer is there is no reason why it is there right now. So just forget that Jivatma is everywhere. Let's limit ourselves to this body. Sa esha jiva vivara prasuti. Where is the main Jivatma, the Jiva? Vivara, in the Hridaya Rupi Gufa. In the heart, in the middle of the heart, there is some place and there is a lotus and it's covered in the lotus and is hiding there. That is the main Jivatma. All the knowledge coming from all around the body, all the sense organs are going to that. That is recognizing everything. It is the Sakshi of this body. But each cell also can recognize by itself. It has its own Jivatma, but they are not, and they are individual Jivatma themselves working together to form this physical body. But I am the main physical body. When moksha, if I attain moksha, my Jivatma will attain moksha. All these will not attain. If Sayujya moksha happens, my thought is because of these Jivatma's association with this Atma, they will also attain is what my thought is. That is my personal thought. I haven't really got into the Shastra. Because of the association of the Vaishnava, all these Jivatma, everything in association with that should attain moksha ideally. But in a simple logical understanding, because the karma has been lost of this Jivatma alone, only this Jivatma should attain moksha ideally there. The others should not be attained. That is what that Jivatma is. Now Jivatma can be in many places. It can be everywhere. There are infinite number of Jivatmas. So they are everywhere. Some will manifest based on the... Very few ever manifest, unfortunately. Okay? And as they keep manifesting, and the question is, if everybody attains moksha, where will they? There is so much, they will not attain moksha. There's so many Jivatma. Bhagavan has created this world for Jivatma, for many, to attain him, so to attain moksha. So he doesn't have to go through this birth, life and death. Of its own choosing, Jivatma, inside the Jivatma there is Paramatma. Without Paramatma, Dharya, right? Jiva, Atma, Chitta is Dharya. It holds Bhagavana within, like that box holds the ghee, holds Paramatma inside. Bhagavana holds us, we hold Bhagavana. You see that box of ghee and ghee in a box. Dibbe ka ghee ka dibba. It's Hindi. In this existence, in this Srishti, we are being held by the box of Bhagavana. In our Jivatma, we are the box upon which Bhagavana is. Inside which Bhagavana is. Okay? Jivatma functions because Paramatma is within it. Jivatma cannot function if there is no Paramatma within it. That's why he's a Dharya. We are Dharya.
And the Paramatma inside all the different Jivatmas is the same Paramatma.
Yes. The Paramatma which is inside me is also inside you.
Yes.
But the Jivatma are two different.
That's right. That
is the difference between Advaita
Yep.
and Vishishtadvaita. You're saying, you see, Advaita is saying there is only Atma and there is only one.
This is the qualification.
Qualification.
This is the qualified.
Qualified. This is qualified now.
Yep.
It is Advaita because at the time of creation, everything, Chitta and Achitta, is in the Vakshasthala of Bhagavana. And then from here he comes again. Again Srishti will happen. Bhagavana, you had asked, so I'll just explain to you. Bhagavana remains in 5 different points, 5 different establishment existence. Para, he lives there. We'll understand this in Ishwar Prakaranam, but I'm just giving you a vague idea. Para Avatara. Vyuha Avatara. Vyuha is before creation, he expands himself into Shankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha and Vyuha Vasudeva. He expands into these 4 for creation. Vibhava. He comes, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya. I told you, every time he comes as Avatara. Rama, Krishna, Varaha, Matsya, Kurma, Narasimha. These are avatars. These are also Bhagavana. These are complete Bhagavana. Okay, we can call them Bhagavan. Antaryami as Paramatma inside Jivatma as Antaryami, and Archa in Shaligrama, in idol. If it is an idol of Bhagavana and Prana Pratishtha Puja has been done, a specific ceremony has been done, Bhagavana is there within it. That is Bhagavana. It is not an idol anymore. We don't worship idols. We worship Bhagavana. You cannot call it an idol anymore. Bhagavana in its full potency, that exact Bhagavana which has all the powers within us, who has all the powers there, which all the powers of Rama, all the powers of Krishna, all the powers of Narasimha is there in that idol now. But this idol is subservient to us. Whenever we bathe the idol, the Bhagavana, whenever we wake him up, Kausalya, Supraja, Rama, Purva, Sandhya, Pravartate. Please wake up. Uttishta Narashardula. Kartavyam Daiva Manhikam. Please look at me work. Please look at me. Uttishta Govinda. Uttishta Garuda Dvaja. Uttishta Kamala Kanta. Trilokyam Mangalam Kuru. Please bless us all. Please wake up now. Please let me pick you up. Please let me feed you. Let me put some clothes on. That's how we serve our Bhagavana. We are subservient to him, but Bhagavana wanted to experience and be with us as close as possible. So he became subservient to us in Archa Avatar as idols. So he is he is the Bhagavana. In the Ram temple back home, there is a whole hallabulla about Ram Mandir. I don't know if you have heard about it. So Ram Bhagavana has not been in his house. The temple belongs to the idol because the idol is Bhagavana himself. That is very important for us to understand. So these are the 5 points Bhagavana lives in and in his full potency. So these 5 you can call Bhagavan. The others you cannot call Bhagavana. So Sharanagati has to be performed in any one of these 5. But through a guru, that is very important. I'll explain to you about the importance of guru one day. Very, very important. All the devotion you have, all the surrendering attitude you have towards Bhagavana has to be displayed towards your guru or towards your acharya. Only then you will attain moksha. Only then what knowledge you gain will be fructified and will evolve. Knowledge attained without a guru will maybe fructified but will not evolve into moksha. That knowledge you will never attain moksha through that. There is a story in Ramayana about Shabari. Shabari is an old woman, and her acharya told her when she was young that one day Rama will come. That's all he had told her. You wait until then. Rama Bhagavana will come to your house one day. You wait. So Shabari was a very innocent lady. And she would get up every morning and she would go, she picked berries. She would eat one berry. And then if that was sweet, she would throw that berry and pick all the berries from that bush because all of them would be sweet because it's the same bush. And then she would dry them and then she would keep them for Rama because she's hoping. And so every day she would do that. And every day on the footpath of her house, she would put flowers, newly plucked flowers. So when Rama comes, he shouldn't step on the stones. He should step on those soft petals. And her acharya had told her that Rama Bhagavana will come and then you will attain moksha. Until then you wait. And then Rama Bhagavana did come. One fine day when she was much older, very old, she came and he gave her all the sweet dried fruits. The dry fruits began all 15 million years ago when Rama Bhagavana was there. So after that, he said, so you can attain moksha now. And then Shabari said, I don't need moksha from you, O Bhagavana. My acharya will give me moksha. I was only waiting for you in service to my acharya. I will surrender upon his feet. And through the acharya she attained moksha. So only through your guru will you attain moksha. Only very rare cases Bhagavana himself comes and becomes your guru and then gives you moksha. And there is another story of Jatayu. There is a bird when Rama's wife Sita has been taken away by Ravana, Jatayu tries very hard to stop Ravana, and he is able to. But then Ravana tricks Jatayu, and because he tricks Jatayu's wing gets cut, he collapses on the ground, and then Rama comes looking for Sita, and then they find Jatayu there. And Jatayu says they have gone south, Ravana has taken. And Rama starts crying, starts shedding tears, because Atmanam Manusham Manye Ramam Dasharatatmajam. Rama, even though he's Bhagavana, he has come as a human being. So he has to experience all the feelings of the human being. So he starts crying. But then he suddenly forgets. And he's like, Tathastu. He gives moksha to Jatayu. Jatayu is a bird. Jatayu doesn't have any guru. So the question is, how can Jatayu attain moksha from Rama without having a guru? So it is understood that Rama himself became the guru of Jatayu and then gave him moksha. So guru is very important. Sakshan Narayano Deva Krutva Martya Maim Tanum. Bhagavana has come in the form of a human being through the avatara of an acharya. And only through that acharya will you attain moksha. And that is the importance of Guru Parampara. So when I start the Mangalacharana in the beginning, Yonityamachyutapadam Bhuja Yugma Rukma Vyamo Hatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmat Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaka Sindhu Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam Prapadde. I surrender upon the lotus like feet of my Acharya and the lineage of Acharyas that have come. And through that, because that lineage goes back to Narayana, Bhagavan Sriman Narayana. It traces back all the way to Bhagavana. And with that chain like link, we attain moksha. And that is what the parampara is about. And that is very important. I will understand more about Guru. It's one session we should have just about understanding the importance of Acharya. And how without Acharya you will never attain moksha. With Acharya, even the worst of situations you will attain moksha. Moksha is such a funny business. Sambhramba Yogam. You don't even have to like Bhagavana. You can hate him. But hate him to such an extent that you can't take him off your mind. Because you can't stop thinking about him. When you die also, you won't stop thinking about him because you hate him so much, you'll attain moksha. So that's also. So I hope that gives you a basic idea of what we have spoken about today.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting.
You can watch it again, take some notes, think about it. It's all about contemplation. Very, very important to think about it. And imagine what it is, what Sharanagati is. It's very important. Because only after you start understanding this, you can perform Sharanagati. A person who has performed Sharanagati will attain moksha in this life. A person who performs bhakti may not attain moksha in this life. Sharanagati, he will attain moksha because it's a Shastra Vakyam. So we'll call it an evening. Yonityamachyutabadam Bhuja Yugma Rukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmat Gurur Bhagavatosya Dayaka Sindho Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam Prapadye Kaudinyavam Savaravaridhi Purna Chandram Srimat Parankushabadam Bhuja Bringarajam Rangari Deshikabdapta Deshikatvam Sri Ramakrishna Guruvaryaham Prapadye Srimate Ramanujaya Namaha. Jai Sriman.